or if you just are continuing to watch. It is always, so actually this is a record now because we have Joey Dumont, Tom Morris, who are both previous guests. And then I realized, wait a second, how about that? You know, ta-da, here I am. So we have
there we go.
Previous guests
Awesome.
joining us today. Well, welcome everybody. And you are now in the Zoom After Show. What more do you want from me except to say welcome?
We got my windows
Good
set
stuff,
up.
guys. This was a great show. I'm never
Wasn't it?
at my desk during one of these shows, and so I had to take advantage of this. Such a good discussion. Thank you for all this. In fact, you made me etymologically look up the word trust, which I never knew comes from an old Norse word.
That's right, trust.
Strength, yeah, strength and confidence and that sort of thing. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
although it's funny, I've part of my pitch, you know, my standard key speeches is don't waste your time with the dictionary. It turns out, I mean, it's true, it's valid definition, etc. But I think trust is one of those words that we use it in so many ways without clearly being understanding how we're using it, which is why it's so important to be clear about like trusting versus trusted, things like that. And the dictionary is not into that sort of thing. But
and Charlie, you're so right in saying that. I was on with somebody else earlier. We were talking about how the word success, another philosopher and I were talking about how the word success means so many different things to so many different people.
Yeah.
It's amazing that we have these common words in our vocabulary, like trust, like success, like happiness.
Yes.
And yet people carry such different ideas in their heads. And so when somebody like you speaks to this very clearly, it helps people get more of a focus on the practical side of what this means in real relationships. In fact, as you were talking, I was thinking of the old metaphor of a relationship as a bank account, and you're always making deposits or withdrawals, right? And this bears on how much you're trusted, right? Are you a guy that every time you show up, you're going to make a withdrawal on our account, or are you always showing up and saying, this is great, a new deposit's on its way? You know?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, well, thank you. I see it exactly that way. That just getting clear on definitions really helps dialogue.
Yeah, it really does. And Joseph is helping us all by having discussions like this on every day. And something that we may not have thought about that much, somebody like you comes along and we say, oh, okay, I see that in a new way now.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tom. I mean, I learned, thank you. I learned, there was so much and I was just scribbling down. It's so funny because I haven't figured it out yet, but you can see here, I try and like take notes, like timestamps, and I don't know if it's good. And my handwriting is so bad because I'm trying to scribble it down while I'm actually listening. And then I go back and I read it and I cannot even remotely even read what I wrote except for the timestamp. So,
I'm the same thing.
And there was so many of them. It was the same as your episode, Tom.
You know, whoever could figure out how to take notes in real time would have a hell of a product on their hands.
That's why Aristotle is so hard to read. His books are actually his notes for lectures. He couldn't even read his own writing. It was all Greek to him too, you know.
Yeah, that's right. I bet you've used that line a few times.
I just thought of it.
That's a great one.
Nice. I will use it again.
He was a doctor, right?
Yeah, right.
Dr.
Joseph. Hey, Joseph, you need a pre-printed sheet that has the time codes down it. If the show's an hour, it's like 1 through 60.
Brilliant.
And then you just write the note. You don't have to write the time.
Very good idea. Yeah.
See, that's Steve Garfield. He's silent but violent.
Hey, you know, Joseph, there was one thing we didn't get to, which this obviously motivated group might enjoy, which is the results of having looked at over 100,000 people who took that assessment. And if you guys are interested, I'll give you sort of the 2-minute rundown of what came out of that. Yeah. It's probably, we're not keeping track, it's probably about 200,000. At the 70,000 point, when we hit 70,000 people, we said, let's flash freeze this, take an analysis of it. And I would say there are 3 big headlines that came out of it. And all of them are intuitively clear, which goes to the point about clear language. These things everybody agrees about. First one, let's test this group. Do you think trustworthiness goes up with age or down with age? Do we get more or less trustworthy as we get older? Yep, Joey, you're absolutely right. And pretty much everybody says, yeah, that's right. Second one, and this is, I think, a very interesting one. Who do you think shows up more trustworthy, men or women? What do you think? Don't
Women.
overthink it.
Yeah, I'm
Woman.
going to say women.
No
Yeah.
question.
You are correct. And not only does our data show that, but I've given the talk about this stuff maybe 300 times. Literally 296 out of 300. When I ask the group that, they go, women. And they're right. But 296 out of 300, that's 99%. That's a hell of a lot of intuitive
Wow.
unanimity around the answer to that question.
That's a staggering statistic.
Isn't it? It really is.
Yeah.
Now, here's one. It isn't quite as much, but I bet you guys will get this too. Turns out that most of the reason for women outperforming men on that score is due to their outperforming on one of those 4 variables. Which one is it? Credibility, reliability, intimacy, or low self-orientation? What would you guess? Don't overthink it.
Low self-orientation.
You mean why they score higher?
Yeah, which one drives predominantly the fact that women score more highly? Because they're particularly
Intimacy.
Yeah,
most
thought of
people would say,
reliability.
well, most people don't think Anyway, the answer is intimacy, which most
Jan.
people find. Pardon?
It's a way to go, Jan.
Yeah.
You got it right.
And most groups get that one too. And again, on some basic intuitive level, yes, women, clearly have that kind of flavor sense. One of the more interesting proofs for that outside of our data is that Gallup, Pew, Yankelovich, they all do studies all the time on most and least trusted professions. And in the US, for example, 19 out of the last 20 years, there's one profession that always ranks at the top. Now, this one's counter to my claim that everybody's intuitive. This one most people don't get. Most people say, doctors, ministers, clergy, fighter pilots. No, it's nurses. And most people go, oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Well, think about it. In the US, it's an 89% female profession. But regardless of whether it's male nurses or female, I've checked with them, the sort of key component to be effective as a nurse within the trust equation, it's not credibility, it's not reliability, it's not even low self-orientation. It is intimacy, that sense of caring. And we watched recently on TV with nurses, literally performing the last connection between dying people and their families. My God, that's caring and intimacy just written so large. And again, I think people sort of get that. So
I was going to say streaming talk show hosts, but
they're way up there too.
Both of them.
There was only in the last 20
that's funny.
in the last 20
Good one.
years, 1 year firemen rated highest, and that was 2002. And if you think about it,
Right
that was the year after 9/11.
Makes sense.
But the year after that, it was back to nurses, and it's been nurses ever since, and it pretty much is. So, and it turns out,
and of course, finish, and then I'll.
Well, the last piece of data was if you run a regression analysis on our database, it turns out that the most powerful factor, by a small margin, is intimacy. So it all kind of fits together. The dominant driver of personal trustworthiness is that sense of personal security, safety, caring, empathy, emotional intelligence, vulnerability, all that stuff. Is hugely powerful. And when our audience is mainly like accountants and lawyers and consultants. So it's a lovely conundrum for them because that's not what they have focused on.
Charlie, can I ask a question? But Joseph, did you want to say something first?
I was just going to make the point a few episodes or a week or so ago, I spoke about that famous, the Gallup poll, right? That has car salesmen, insurance salesmen, politicians, and then
all at the bottom,
advertising practitioners. And I was just thinking, can we loan you out to Congress right now, or can we leave you in DC for a while and maybe help us? But anyway, Tom, back to you.
Yeah, the denominator of the trust fraction. I wonder, there's a question that came up to me. The intimacy aspect of nurses, superiority and trust, strikes me as absolutely right. But a thing that strikes me as a number 2 thing, like why nurses rather than doctors, a number 2 thing is, are they in the job to serve or to be served? Yeah. And anybody who has the potential for high income, high status, high power, you're in doubt about that. Are they really in this to serve or to be served?
Right.
Firemen don't make much money. Nurses
Right.
don't make much money.
Correct.
They're obviously in this to serve rather than to be served. Now, the same thing would be true of policemen
Mhm.
if it were just a matter of wealth
Yes.
or social status. But
But it's
because
not.
of the power equation,
Right.
that becomes a more confusing variable in their case.
Yeah.
So it could be all over the place. But with nurses, there's no doubt they're in it to serve. And so
Yeah.
that struck me as a secondary factor that's also
I
interesting.
totally agree with you. That's a great point.
Where do
I think you're
teachers
absolutely
fit in
right.
that for that same reason? Teachers fit in that category as well, correct? In the
Absolutely.
fact that they obviously are underpaid. They're very intimate with the kids,
Yeah.
the other ministry. I mean, the teachers are amazing, and we've also seen that play out
Yes.
in our COVID culture now, in the sense that our children miss. I have two little boys, and they miss their teachers.
Oh yeah.
They miss them. They miss the whole. And these teachers are amazing human beings.
Yes, they
And
are.
they don't get paid, so they probably sit in there too. No.
Yeah, they tend to show up in the upper, I don't know, 1/3 on these surveys, and for reasons I think you just articulated very well. Yeah.
And would you say that factor ties into the credibility component of the trust equation because they're foregoing financial gains, which makes them more credible in their honestness? And
Yeah, it does a little bit. And these categories bleed into each other in interesting ways. For example, there's a throwaway line I use that if the doctor says to you, you're going to be up and walking in 2 weeks, and the nurse comes to you and says, honey, it's going to be a month, who do you believe? You believe the nurse. Now, why? It's mainly in my terminology because they have that intimate, direct relationship with you. You feel like they're telling you the truth. And I think you could probably make a similar point about self-orientation, although there's an interesting limit. If your ego strength is so low, and you may bleed empathy, but for the wrong reasons. I'll share here, I have been 25 years a member of AA, and I've known a number of nurses in AA, and nurses drink too much to feel the pain that they can't solve everybody's problem. They can't turn it off. And, up to a point, that's a lovely attribute. But at the point where it starts to destroy your own life, and you're not useful to anybody, it's overdone. So.
And that would speak to reliability too, because a person who can't really handle themselves well or is depending on things to help them get through the day, well, you don't know how reliable they will be.
Yeah.
They'll say the right things and they'll sincerely make the right promises to you, but you don't know whether they'll be in the
Whether
right
they can
shape
deliver
to be
on
able
it.
to follow through or not. Right.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
but by extension, if they are the first one to tell you they're recovering, then what do you know? You've got somebody who thinks wonderful things about them, and you get to have all that trust delivered. Hi, Charlie.
Yeah.
Chris, great to see you, man.
Fun to watch you chat today. Always fun.
Thank you. Love the beard. Looking good on you.
Oh, thanks. Well, I keep shaving all of everything above my neck, and COVID just won't stop. So I'm just growing back into
Give it
a
up. Let it grow.
It grows back, but only whiter. That's what happens when we get older.
Very snowy at this point.
So Chris, back in the day when we all had Google alerts and Twitter alerts, and we could always tell when someone was talking about us. How did you find out that your name was mentioned on the show today?
I just tuned in because I saw Charlie was going to be on it.
Oh, that's what happened.
What happens is there's this book that just came out 4 days ago. That's the 10th anniversary
of
the first time we ripped off Charlie and David. So we've really made a kind of professional writing career out of saying these guys wrote this amazing thing, and ever since.
So
that's what I didn't know. You had a 10th anniversary.
Chris was like, people don't care how much you know until.
That's funny. No, I mean, Chris, remind me. I was trying to remember. How did we first meet? I mean, I have that Harvard.
So it's
thing
Julian Smith's fault. Julian is friends with David Maister. And so Julian made some kind of connection there. And when we finally were talking through, like when Trust Agents was getting ready to come out, we had this idea, wow, we're going to do this thing over at the Harvard Club. Wouldn't it be great to get David and Charlie?
Right.
And the way we looked at it, and you and I have talked about this a bunch of different times in different ways, when you hit certain ages, it's almost like someone thinks all of the most important ideas on which the foundation of business has been made, because you don't have purple hair or something, don't count anymore. And meanwhile, we were like these schmoes coming up, and we just didn't have any real reliability or credibility in talking about it. So we looked up to you and loved the work so much, and we wanted to, put our shine on it. Yeah. And at the same chance, it was like us idiot new guys could bring you into a new group of people who, for whatever reason, didn't realize you were the OGs, as they say all the time.
Right.
Which I've come to realize means now we can ignore you again. But it's throughout much more than a decade now. It has just been that feeling of the great opportunity of chitty chatting with you when we can, and sort of sharing back and forth where we can.
Yeah.
But also, it's become a bit of a one of a few different crusades of mine to make sure that we don't throw away books and people that just because we're starting to look a lot whiter every day, maybe we still have some ideas. And I'm really trying to make sure that we always blend those things, because sure, we need to learn something about TikTok, but boy, a lot of people need to know about the trust equation.
Yeah. Good for you. Yeah.
Well, it's not a coincidence that Chris, to your point, and I won't mention you or feed your or my ego, but let's just talk about, let's feed rather two people's egos. Let's feed Tom's and Charlie's, because two of my, Tom, yours was the first interview that I said to myself, I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen to the whole thing again.
Wow.
I did the same thing.
And I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it to treat myself. I'm going to do it like when I'm on a run, like when I normally listen to Howard Stern or Tim Ferriss. I'm going to treat myself when it's just you and me. I know it's National Orgasm Day. I apologize, but still, it was just.
Not to get too excited about this. Then.
Yeah.
So, I agree. And by the way, I don't know David Meister, but I did see one of his quotes in one of Charlie's articles, and he said the problem is never what the client said it was in the first meeting. Yeah. And again, it's one of those things that was so like, wow, there's Great so quote. Much. Like I get it, but I don't get it, but I want to know more. It's amazing when a quote itself you can just sense is that little bit of that thread that you just want to pull, and it's just going to unravel something.
Yeah, it's pregnant with meaning. It's true. Yeah, that one, by the way, I love, because what it says to me, the unpacking of it says, the purpose of getting to know customers and clients is not to get the answer to them. A, you could be wrong, you don't have the right to do it yet, but B, well, I'm related to that. Customers really don't always know exactly the full definition of the problem. Otherwise, they would have done something themselves. Go to the web, pull down the solutions, etc. What usually happens is there used to be a book called I'm Okay, You're Okay. And I've often thought somebody should rewrite a book called I'm an Idiot, You're an Idiot. Let's get over it and get down to figuring out together. Because a collaborative definition of what the real problem is not only likely to be a better definition of the problem, it's going to get buy-in from both parties. And that whole process, if you think about it, for anybody in a consultative kind of a role, that's the right way to do it. Joint problem definition at the outset.
Hey, Charlie, what's so great about that? And Joseph, I can't remember if we talked about this during my session or not, but Aristotle had this conception of the highest human good in his book, The Politics, where you can basically boil it down to this: people in partnership for a shared purpose. And you are best at sales. I'm best as serving some company when we partner up with our client. We engage in a partnership of the minds. We're bringing the best of who we are, each of us, to a shared purpose. And when Socrates recommended self-knowledge, he didn't mean that was the kind of thing that you sitting by yourself, me sitting by myself, could come up with. It's only in partnership with other people. So your client doesn't really know what the problem is, though he thinks he does. That's no surprise, because it's when he enters partnership with you, then new revelations come not only to you, but to him as well. So I think your use of the word collaboration was really insightful there, because that's what happens, I think.
Love it.
For me, that also speaks to one of the biggest problems, especially in marketing and maybe other aspects of life, which is you can go in and explain or try to explain why it is you need to have synergy in order to solve a problem. But then the tough part is having the system, the organization, the operational apparatus that's out of control also have synergy.
Yeah.
In other words, how many times have we, what we think we've done in many cases have, nailed a strategy, nailed the real, honest, authentic story of this brand, and then it becomes just another marketing campaign. HR doesn't embrace it,
Right.
legal doesn't embrace it, the C-suite doesn't embrace it, investors are chosen who don't embrace it, and it's a bunch of bullshit marketing again.
Because it doesn't percolate. It doesn't percolate. Walls are in place that don't let it percolate through, and really energize the system. I think that's very wise, Jim.
Yeah.
Well, it's like buying someone a gym membership because they're overweight.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Good.
Yeah, David Maister, actually, his last book he wrote was a great one called The Strategy and the Fat Smoker. And the thesis is very simple. I'm fat, I smoke, I need help. If all you're going to tell me is it's bad to be fat and bad to smoke, enough. I know that.
Right.
If you can help me figure out ways to your very point.
Yeah. That was with the agency. There's a couple of us in here from the agency world. When we actually pitched, I was the pitch guy, which I know surprises a lot of people. But when we actually went in, we would say to the actual group, the brand, I would say that we've only studied your brand for the last 3 weeks. So we don't know anything close to what you guys know. So just apologize in advance if we miss things, because if you come in as an agency, you guys need to do this, 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 and this. They're like, man, because they sit back in their chair and like, how? You've been looking at this brief for 3 weeks. I've been in this job for 9 years as the CMO, and you're telling me what to do without. So it's like that. I've had clients, after we win the RFP, out to dinner, a couple drinks, and then they all say the same thing. I really like the fact that you told us you didn't know a lot about our brand.
Joey, I'm so excited to hear you say that. I want to just one of the ideas that I've been developing in the last couple of years, it's called Bring a Risky Gift. And it's based on just what you said. The fact that if you want to kickstart trust, you can't just sit around and be trustworthy. That's like aggressively waiting for the phone to ring. You have to figure out how to trust the clients.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways, I say exactly what you just said. You present something, you say, look, we're not an expert in the area. You know much more than we do, but we know a few things, and we take some time to look. And you know what? We have a feeling that maybe X here might be a problem. Yes or no? What do you think? And there's only 2 answers, and they're both good. The first one is, damn right, X is an issue. Anything you have is great. Let's talk about it. The other one's even better, which is when they say, yeah, everybody thinks X is the problem, but no, it's actually Y, in which case you say, oh my God, the minute you said that, you're so right. Tell me more about Y, and you're off to the races. The point is, when you do what you said, you are making yourself vulnerable. You're saying, I could be wrong. This could be totally wrong. I could be off base. You're admitting it. You're taking a risk to put yourself emotionally out there, and they perceive it, and they reciprocate by them becoming willing to listen to what you have to say. I love that you're doing that.
And Charlie, you and Joey both remind me of Socrates, who had his power because of asking questions, not because of giving answers too quickly, right? And it's in that asking of questions that real partnerships develop, right? You can think you're in partnership with somebody and you're not really. You're each given pre-programmed answers, pre-packaged answers. But when you're in a true partnership, that's going to involve a lot of detective work, a lot of mutual sharing, a lot of asking of questions, wanting to know the answers, And it's what led to his student, Plato's big distinction between appearance and reality, which I think is the most important philosophical distinction of all time, because most people deal with appearances only, which to Plato were mostly illusions. And it's the true wise person who asks enough questions to peel off those illusions, those appearances, and get to the true realities.
Yep.
Very true.
We can have a whole separate discussion about Plato versus David Hume, say, but I agree with you about the problem statement. That's fundamental.
I can tell you that Joey just updated his LinkedIn status right now to be most, was just compared to Socrates.
I was going to tell my wife I was compared to Socrates today. That's it.
Yeah, blame me. Blame me, Joey.
Well, I'm going to tell, and Tom, you actually were compared to Plato in your reviews for within the Oasis. So that.
Oh yeah, it's true. It's true. So what can we say? Those guys are turning over in their graves. Their togas are all twisted up.
Right.
Yeah, but at least you're a philosopher. I'm a junior college dropout, so I win.
Hey, so was Socrates. Don't say any more. Well, no, you're him reincarnate.
Hold on. I can do this, which is one of the good things of being the host is that I can rename people. So I might have spelled Socrates
there
wrong.
we go.
I think
Nicely done.
Sorry, did I spell it incorrectly?
Got it. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's like that Woody Allen movie where Joseph's going to bring Socrates from the movie line, and Socrates says, "Wait a minute, you don't know anything about my philosophy."
Marshall McLuhan. Yeah. Perfect.
That's so funny. Woody Allen. I mean, you're a brave man to even talk about Woody Allen these days, right? True. I mean, I have so many Woody Allen quotes that I can never use anymore because I know I'm going to get a stern face from somebody.
Yeah.
There's a best-selling memoir out.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Oh, does he?
Blew my mind. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Got to check it out.
Okay. So I'm going to jump in. I'm sorry, I'm not live with video. I was out all day putting up storm shutters for the impending hurricane. I think, Charlie, you're probably, I'm in West Palm Beach. I know you're in Boca, so we'll
get it 20 miles before you do. That's all.
Yeah, so I look like I've been out in 100-degree weather all day. So
which you have.
This is a better pick than the live one. But it's interesting because today, I think even yesterday on Joe, the art and value of questioning has come up several times. And one of the books that I read that I might have put in the comments the other day was A More Beautiful Question by Warren Berger, who does a great job of really bringing that questioning, to light. And it's a great book. If it's a fairly easy read. It's not a Plato level or Socrates level read, but I would just throw that out
again, Leslie?
It's a More Beautiful Question by Warren Berger. And I use
Warren Berger, the justice?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But that's a good question. I'm not sure. But I use a lot of it.
Somebody else Berger. Anyway, okay.
Warren Berger. Yeah, it's But it's I use a lot of the quotes in that when I do my sales training, which is, sellers are not asked. And your comments on the today were great about the trustworthiness and how you gain it. And I loved hearing it. But the other thing that is to me fascinating is how do we get sales managers to start to reinforce it, to make it part of the expected behaviors. Because, when we do training, we look at there's like this triangle of thought. We have the behavior, the insights that drove that behavior, and then what results we get when we can change that if they're willing to think through the differences. So, but many times it's really it's leadership that has to. And I don't think I came in sort of towards the end of the Facebook interview, but I don't know if you talked about the trust factor in terms of some leadership components as well, especially the sales side of things, which I feel it's just missing in significant ways. And it's like, don't expect individuals to know they have to, and don't expect, without reinforcement and setting the culture around it. I wonder if you can comment on that.
That's such a great point. I'd like to comment on that, even though I'm not one of the all-stars here. My guess, if it were me who were deciding the format of how to choose a sales force, one of the things that would come to mind would be not to hire any salespeople. And I'm reminded of what Tony Hsieh did at Zappos, and it was in his book. And that category was all about telemarketing, which was all about speed to sale. And he rejected script reading, and hired people who had this one simple attribute. They enjoyed talking with people and they cared about people.
Right.
And at the expense of talking with them too long, they formed relationships. And Zappos did pretty well.
Sure did.
Yeah.
I was just on a call before this one with he's chief marketing officer or something, been there for 30 years for a highly successful $5 billion company, chip company in California. They got rid of their entire commission structure around selling. Everybody's on salary. And of course, the way you make that, I totally believe in that, by the way, but you have to support it with coaching, to your point, Leslie, and a whole culture driven towards, for lack of a better term, customer orientation and all the things that applies. On the coaching thing, by the way, if probably some of you are aware, in my experience, one of the guys that writes really well about that is David Brock, B-R-O-C-K, not to be confused with the political David Brock. He's very thoughtful. He comes from a long B2B career, just a very thoughtful guy, and he does write intelligently about rightly done sales coaching and sales management.
Can I ask a question to you guys? We've talked about questions for a bit, and all of a sudden it occurred to me, because of something Leslie said just now. I bought a book years ago by a Hollywood producer, and I tend not to buy books by Hollywood producers. And the name of the book is Tell to Win, and I tend not to buy books with win in the title. But for some reason, this book appealed to me. His basic premise in the book, he says, every time I went into a meeting trying to pitch or sell an idea, and I went in with a lot of facts and figures, I never got what I wanted. But whenever I went into a meeting with a great story to tell, I always got everything I wanted and even more. And so I'm wondering if storytelling, the importance of storytelling, matches the importance of question asking, which are two very different things, but both could potentially cement a personal relationship between two people considering doing business with each other for the first time, right? You touch your heart, you touch your imagination, you get both minds going. But I just wonder what you guys think about that. The importance of questioning and the importance of storytelling, both things, which kind of, I missed the first of the show, so the first few minutes, so that may have come up, storytelling, the idea of storytelling, but maybe that has to do with building trust too.
Yeah. I think, I mean, for what it's worth, I'm sure everybody could answer that. My take on stories is it's an amazing way of giving advice. If you try and tell anybody, I mean, the one biggest thing I've learned in life is nobody does what the hell you want them to do, particularly if you tell them what to do. We're all teenagers. We rebel. We don't like that. The lovely thing about stories is by wrapping it up in a little linear story that has meaning encapsulated in it, even if it's transparently clear what the moral of the story is, it's different. You're not telling them what to do. You're letting them extract the meaning from the story. So all the overlay of competitiveness is gone. And we all like stories. They make sense and meaning out of life. So I think you're totally right, Tom. It accomplishes a very parallel function. And of course, you can mix them up. I mean, Abraham Lincoln, part of his charm was he always had a story for everything. Yeah. And he always left people thinking, wow, that's kind of interesting.
Well, we teach leading. I believe leading with storytelling, and we teach that. It's actually our most popular course is our storytelling course. And I believe you lead with it because then you hook them in. I mean, we all heard the line that we make decisions based on emotions and validate with facts, and that's what stories do. They inspire someone to want to hear, to learn. I think questioning is the next, is the great next step. So once you've done your job with storytelling, you'll get to questioning, and if done right, they work together.
But also, and guys, I've got to shut it down in just a couple moments. But the one thing I just wanted to add to what you were saying, Tom, is the two can actually work beautifully together. Yes. And it's kind of like Occam's law, which is a story, telling the story, the anecdote, the analogy, and then it doesn't have to be linear and with a finite end. It can be open-ended. It can leave people, and you don't even have to ask the questions at the end. They may naturally just raise additional questions too, if told well.
Yeah, good point.
Well, actually, that's the ultimate goal of a good story, is what I believe the story leads to the narratives, which are the questions to get to the next step. I mean, stories shouldn't just end and go, oh, that was nice. They should end with, now what? And how do I do now what? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen. No, I'm going to let you have the final word, Jan, because you are one of the rock stars.
Nah, it's all right. No.
We're all stars in the after show. No, we really are, and this has been probably one of the best, I think, after shows we've had in terms of just everybody joining in and having an amazing conversation. So I just want to thank all of you, and Charlie, you are, as evidenced by Tom, you are welcome back anytime, and as often as you want to come. Excuse that again. Apologies for the reference. I blame Bob Farnham for the National Day. But I just want to thank. I'm sorry, but it is Friday afternoon. I also learned my hypothesis of should I be doing a show on a Friday when people are kind of winding down. The answer is hell yes.
Hell yes, exactly.
This has been a great way to end the week. So I just want to thank all of you guys, and Jan, I'm gonna let you have the final word, but before you do, I'm gonna see if Charlie wants to add something. Charlie, you have the second final word.
I've had plenty of airtime. Thank you. I'm good. Jan.
All right, Jan.
Thank you,
So are
Charlie.
you.
Thank you.
Good to see all you guys.
Go on, Jan.
Story listening.
Let's end on a high.
Story listening.
Story listening has to come before storytelling.
Fertile soil for the seeds you plant. Fertile soil. And if I may say just one more thing in honor of today's National Whatever It Was Day, I will reference a famous movie. I'll reference a famous movie and say I'll have what Joseph's having.
Yes.
I love it.
Oh man.
Well done.
Man. That's hold on. Timestamp 37 minutes.
Yeah. I think you're going to have to edit there's an edit for your new opening, Joseph.
I'm telling you, or maybe it's a new closing. I don't know. I'm gonna stop the recording on Facebook. I apologize to everybody watching on Facebook.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks,
guys,
all.
have an amazing weekend.
Pleasure. Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Seth.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, everybody. Seth, Bob, Joey, Jen,
Thanks, all.
Steve, I'm looking at everyone's name. Haiti looking in the background
Socrates.
there. I love it.
Socrates
Plato,
Socrates
Brogan, etc. Bye, guys.
Yep. Ciao.
Bye-bye.